Community members gathered Tuesday night for Faith in Florida's Civic Night training hosted by community organizers Marlowe Jones and Shinikki Whiting. The event focused on educating residents about Florida voting trends, legislative power, and the importance of civic engagement ahead of the 2026 election cycle. Participants review voter registration data across Florida, which currently shows approximately 5.6 million Republican voters, 4.4 million Democratic voters, over 431,000 minor party voters, and nearly 3.7 million voters with no party affiliation. Organizers explained that this data is important because it helps communities understand where voter participation is growing, where it is declining, and which groups need more outreach and engagement. The presentation also highlighted Florida counties with the largest voter populations, including Miami-Dade, Broward, Hillsborough, Duval, Pinellas, and Pasco counties. Attendees learned about Florida's current legislative makeup, where Republicans hold a majority in both the House and Senate, allowing the party to advance many of its policy priorities. Discussions included concerns surrounding public education, funding, private school voucher expansion, healthcare access, housing affordability, DEI programs, Black history education, criminal justice, and immigration policy. The training also showed declines in voter turnout in several counties during the 2024 election compared to 2020, particularly among younger voters. One major takeaway from the event was the importance of local organizing. Community members were encouraged to engage elected officials, educate neighbors and family members, organize phone banking and canvassing efforts, and help develop future civic leaders within their own communities. Faith in Florida organizers emphasized that real change begins with informed communities taking action together long before election day.
If you go down your different counties, you got here Hernando on there. I don't see Pasco on there. I wonder if Pasco didn't want to give up that data.
Down more, it's outside Florida.
Oh, is it up there?
On the next page, have it.
Go down further a little
Go
bit.
down a little bit further. Do you see Pasco?
No. Oh, maybe coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, keep it's in L's. Then M. There we go.
Okay, here we go. There we go. So bring it up a little bit. You can go down a little bit. We'll bring it up as far as we can. Okay, so Pasco, keep going.
Down?
Yeah. Well, yeah, down, because we go
Okay,
down.
see. Okay, I see that.
You want these?
I probably did.
You should go. All right, so Pasco, we see here, we see 72%. We got 75%. So I think the first one was African American.
Yeah.
72% the Latino. 71%. And go up a little bit, Nikki.
You want me to go? All right, there you go.
Okay. AAPI.
Asian Pacific.
Asian Pacific.
Oh.
Thank you. Native American, white, and other.
All right.
All right. So these are the different counties, as you can see, that have the different demographics, which is interesting to see. I like to sometimes see the numbers because it's sometimes hard to get this type of information from your local supervisor of elections office. When you ask them to break something down by race, they like, oh. All right. Okay. So go ahead to the next one. All right. Yep. Going down. What is in the agenda for 2026? So this is where we are now. Like, what's happening now? We've already been through it, right? So we're still in legislative session, right? I believe they just came to an agreement on a budget. They didn't vote on it yet, so they still haven't voted on the budget, but they have come to some consensus. What we do know is the governor, senator's house, representative, county positions, and local elections. So all of those folks are up for re-election. The governor's up for election. The state house, state representatives, state senators, they are up for election. Your state house representatives are elected every 2 years. Your state senators are every 4. So it's very important to know who your state representatives are. We'll talk about that after we go through this presentation. What else is on the agenda for 2026? Black history. Well, we know in the state of Florida that certain laws and legislations have been passed that waters down Black history, that for some reason they want to make it seem that slaves benefited from slavery. And I can assure you, none of my family ever got their 40 acres and a mule. The acres they did get, they had to buy and work for. So Black history is still on the chopping block. I have no idea why our state legislators are so focused on that. It really does concern me because you would think we would want to be teaching our children the truth and not telling them lies, so history does not repeat itself. Healthcare. I talk to mothers and fathers all the time who children are being cut from Medicaid or seniors who are losing their Medicare with no type of communication. Imagine going to the doctor with your child and you're told they can't see your child because their insurance has been cut or it's been changed. Florida is the #1 state that is dropping kids off the healthcare plan faster than any other state. The federal government has asked Florida for the last 15 years, hey, we have extra money we'd like to give you to expand Medicaid so more children and families that need it could have access to quality healthcare. But as far back as when Rick Scott was the governor, they kept denying it. Who wants to deny giving children and families health care, right? Insurance. How many of you are still trying to figure out what's going on with the housing insurance? I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Every year they go to Tallahassee, you think something's being done about issues that people are directly being affected by. Nothing came out this session about making sure your property insurance doesn't keep skyrocketing. Because right now I know people, including my own grandmother, who said she doesn't know how she will continue to live. She's on a fixed income, Social Security, and her insurance is going up, and all these things are going up that are out of her control. Subsidized programming, DEI. I just want to ask most lawmakers, I would love to get all the lawmakers in the room. Go to Tallahassee one day, and I want each of the 120 members in the House to explain to me, what is DEI, right? What is that to y'all? Because y'all talk about it a lot, but they never tell us what it is, right? Because when I looked it up, diversity was a good thing. Equity and inclusion was a good thing. I didn't know those were boogeyman terms, but they have been flipped. As you know, there's a new law that the governor signed into law a couple of weeks ago that says if the city of Port Richey or Newport Richey spends money on DEI programs, right, or allocates funds to that, the governor has the right to remove you from office. Just think about that. So me and Ms. Rosner want to have a Juneteenth celebration, and the city might want to spend a little money to help. Well, maybe the mayor could be removed from office if the governor deems that. Criminal justice. You're going to start seeing things happen in the criminal justice field where your school shot of an African-American man I had never seen in my life. Never seen. For 20, 30 minutes, she kept putting this photo in front of us saying, hey, do you know this person? Do you know this person? Have you ever seen this person? I'm in like 6th, 7th grade. I don't know. I just want to go play basketball, hang out with the girls at the movies, do kid stuff. But I didn't know until I got home, but something inside of me felt violated, right? Because this teacher who we all loved and trusted so much, why would she do that to us? And then of course find out her husband worked for the sheriff's office. So what she was doing is, that was that school to prison pipeline. Oh, these black boys might know this bad person. So I told my mom about it. She wasn't happy. I told my cousins about it. They weren't happy. So the end result was Pasco School Board was engaged. Parents went out to the school board. And that teacher had to come and serve 40 hours of community service here in this building. So that was her punishment. Instead of losing her job, because I felt more worse that I said something got my teacher in trouble than realized that what rights of mine that had been violated. How bad is that, right? I cared more about this lady's gonna lose her job because I opened my mouth, but not really understanding what had happened. Well, about 7 or 8 years later, we started finding out that our sheriff's department had a predictive policing program where kids were being put in this algorithm. Oh, little Johnny got 2 referrals today. So now he's going to.
Really enjoyed the Faith in Florida Civics Night, and I think that these type of events are so important because it gives us a chance to sit down with community members, with our neighbors, and everybody share and discuss what we're experiencing. Sometimes when you're going through your day-to-day life, you may be experiencing housing issues, others may be experiencing insurance issues, medical issues, employment issues. All of these things are navigated through the government, our local government. And so one thing we did get to do, we had a little activity that mapped, if you have an issue, who is the person that you go to. And so that was pretty neat and fun to be able to work that and do that together. I found that the data that we discussed, as far as voter turnout, was really interesting, to see the differences. I want to go to some of it real quick and pull it back up because I did have it up. And I kind of want to highlight some of the things that I found very interesting. General election turnout. This slide basically went from 2010 to 2024, looking at all of the active voters, and you can see the increase over the years. The turnout by priority county kind of showed the decrease compared to 2020 and 2024. There were some significant counties that saw a decrease: Broward, Duval, Miami-Dade, Orange, Seminole. Those were the ones that had the highest decrease in voter turnout. And at this meeting, we got an opportunity to talk about why, or at least ponder on it, and maybe now go back and do some research and really think about what took place back then and why in 2020 people were more inclined to vote versus in 2024. And so some of the things we did discuss was all of the changes that were taking place surrounding voting. There was at the time, changes in the mail-in ballots and when you could be registered and maybe you falling off the list. It was a lot. And when you're going through your everyday life and things are tough and you're busy, you're working, you got kids, these type of things fall through the cracks because it's not a part of your everyday life, but it affects it. So it's super important that we carve out a little bit of time to ponder on these things and figure out what we can do to make things better, because others are taking it very seriously. And as a result of how serious they're taking it, they're seeing the things that they want come to fruition. Meanwhile, others are being affected by those decisions the most. So another thing was discussed was the turnout by party, turnout by age, which I, really found interesting that there was a dip in young people voters, and people had a lot to say about that. They were commenting on ways that we possibly could get the young people more engaged in their civic duty, which is voting and knowing who are your representatives and having some sort of relationship with them where, hey, you at least know who they know who you are, they understand what your concerns are, which takes time for you to get it together to properly communicate it to them. So we also discussed turnout by race and gender, and women turned out at higher rates across all racial groups. I think we should be concerned about that more than we say, because a lot of the younger people, a lot of the younger men that's growing up and becoming voters, they're less engaged, they're less informed, and a lot of young women may be having more of these conversations considering, abortion rights and things like that that are really affecting us. And so It's not about right or wrong when it comes to abortion. It comes down to the permission or the access to whatever a woman needs. And it is a hypocrisy that men are able to get what they need without the judgment, the moral judgment. And I really get, frustrated about this because I did remember speaking with my representative, which is Brad Yeager. I went and sat in his office and I really wish I could have recorded the conversation, but he didn't want me to. But I was concerned because he's making decisions on that here in Florida for us. And when I asked him about it, the first words out of his mouth was about morals and religion. And in my opinion, with women having to sit with, fetuses inside them that are not alive anymore because they can't get that process. The process of removing a fetus that is no longer alive inside of a woman's body is more than an abortion, but all of it has become grouped together. And just the mention of these things happening, because the facts is that in Florida you can still get an abortion up to a certain time, but that becomes a problem for women that may want their child. And after a certain amount of time, if that child expires inside of them, it becomes dangerous for that woman. And because those procedures after a certain time are not allowed to be performed by doctors, with the repercussions of they may lose their license, they may get in some sort of trouble, they're not really risking it. And what that puts in the minds, and I didn't mean to go off on this tangent, but I really just do have to speak my mind. I really feel like because women are more impacted by what's going on, they're out here voting more. And because they're more aware, in my opinion, this is strictly my opinion, I honestly feel like a lot of times men and young men don't want to be told what to do. And they have lost hope in this system. And so a lot of them just throw their hands up like, I'm not even going to vote for anybody to be ruling over me, and they don't care about what I have to say. And I can recall during the last elections, a lot of Black men like, well, nobody cares about what we have to say. Nobody cares about what we want. So why should we be voting for them? And I didn't come into agreement with it, but I understood it. And looking at the next fact that came out under the turnout by race and gender, they found that there was a significant gap among Black voters. There was 9 points more of Black women voting than Black men. And we need to discuss that. We need to discuss why there is such a gap. And we need to figure out how we can get that gap filled. So there was turnout by race for every county. And so we kind of did go over that for Pasco County. And of course, I couldn't help but look up Duval County, which is my hometown, their stats and things like that. So this information is really interesting. Another thing we did was go through an agenda for 2026 on things that we should be aware of, as far as our rights and our access to proper health care, to adequate housing, to insurance that's going to cover things for us when we have the reason why we have this insurance, and will the rates continue to go up? DEI, criminal justice. We discussed the pipeline from school to prison. We discussed nonprofits and how they're being attacked, and basically how the government can deem a nonprofit as a terrorist group and basically lock them out of everything, and have people that are affiliated with them criminalized. So that was a very significant point that came out in the discussion. We just began to really talk about how all of these changes are affecting us and are going to affect us in the future. And then we left it on a call to action to basically engage elected officials, engage our neighbors and our friends, and have a voting plan, and talk to people as they're mentioning all of the things that they're going through. We could slide in there, well, you can always go in and vote to have these things be different for you. And the activity that we ended up doing really showed that. I want to pull that up real quick. This particular activity we did, which was who do I call? And you basically have a problem and you want to know who do you contact. So everybody at the event was given a problem, such as potholes on the county roads, illegal dumping in neighborhoods, rent problems, discrimination, homeowners insurance concerns, Medicaid medical coverage, street light not working, property tax questions, voting issues, school concerns, unsafe abandoned property, domestic violence help, SNAP benefit issue, animal control issue. There are people to address these things within our community that are either appointed or voted in, and the way that and how they conduct themselves is based off of how who's in office and our legislative, and the policies surrounding these particular entities. So for potholes on county roads, you would contact your county public works, and then you can kind of go through the list and see who you will contact. But I basically cut these up. Everybody was given a problem, and on the board was the list of people that you contact. And then based off of that list, they were able to put it together, on the pin board, where exactly who would they contact. So it was nice. I think it gave us like a real world example of things. And I know for some people, this may be information that, you already know, but these are the type of things that we bring in our younger people, and we make sure that they're aware of these things, not once they get a house, but before that. Before they walk into those times in their lives, they're already prepared with this knowledge and have a deeper understanding of how the city works, of how our neighborhood and our community works. And they realize you're not, without any power or without a voice. You actually have a lot of say in how you live your best life.